Um, Welcome to today's podcast with Chris and Bella.
Yeah.
This is. Let's start again. I'm sorry. Is this too?
This is fun.
Okay.
We should totally just leave this as the start of it. You
Really?
know what? Fuck intros. Yeah, let's keep it real.
All right.
What are we doing, baby? What is this?
So this is the Intellectual Conversations podcast, and this is the first episode.
First episode of the ICP.
Yep.
It's been a long time coming.
So
what are we doing here? What is this?
Firstly, should we introduce ourselves?
That could be a good idea.
Yep. Well, I'm Bella.
Hi.
Hi. And who are you?
I'm Chris. So we are, well, I am formerly a university student. I've just decided that the stress wasn't worth it. But yeah, we've both been studying psychology at the University of Sydney, which is where we met. And I'm a massive podcast fan. I listen to them all day. It gets me through work. And we thought this would be a good outlet for some of our creative ideas and inspirations, things that we want to discuss.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've always been very academic, you can say. So I've got a lot to say in terms of, you know, what's being done out there scientifically and new ideas that are innovative. And I guess this would be an outlet on, you know, to share these ideas with everyone who is interested in psychology and would like to have a little self-help guide sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it's a good balance because you're very academic, you're very rational, you're very reasonable, you really embody the scientific method and principles of like being skeptical and stuff like that. Whereas I just get a bit crazy sometimes. I get a bit excited. I get caught up in hype, and you know.
So you're the exciting guy.
Oh
and
no.
I'm the all boring and shit.
Oh no, but I mean,
person.
you can bring me down to earth, which is good. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to just spit out quackery and be damaging in the way I influence other people. You know, I'd like to know that stuff that we talk about is you know, well researched and like legit.
Yeah. And just as a disclaimer, when I say that I am academic, I am not an academic. I am just a psychology student who has been involved in a few studies in the psychology labs at the University of Sydney. Having said that, I did not oversee these studies myself. I was simply a part of these studies. So in normal day terms, I have an idea of what science is and the process, the scientific process, but I'm not an academic.
Right. Okay, so I mean, we mentioned psychology, but like, what sort of topics do you think we're going to be discussing on this podcast? Why should people listen to this podcast?
Well, I can't say for Chris because he will say it himself, I guess. But for me, I've lived through or still going through some, you know, psychological issues,
Right.
I can say. And I think studying psychology has helped me a lot to understand myself and to, I guess, live better because of it.
Right.
So I want to share that knowledge to everyone else so that they can have the best quality of life as possible.
Right. And I mean, I found this also, like, everyone jokes about the fact that most psych students are doing psych because they're trying to self-medicate. They're trying to figure themselves out and you know, fix their problems. So pretty much every psychologist you go and see at one point was probably crazy. Maybe still is. And yeah, I personally, like, I know a lot of things that happen in the world of psychology and therapy and stuff like that, like really does trickle down and filter to the greater society and stuff. But I think there's a lot of really useful things that we learn that a lot of people could benefit from.
Definitely.
You know? Like even, I mean, we're not parents. Bella hopefully one day will let me have kids with her. But like we learned some stuff that I think parents could really benefit from knowing. Like in no way do I want to say that I'm an expert, but I would like to talk to some experts, get some guests on the show who are either practicing psychologists or academics or whatever, and bring some of this stuff to life, because you see some fascinating things inside of these journals that the average person's never going to read, and it just doesn't get enough media. It doesn't get enough attention, and there's not enough usefulness coming from it in the average person's life. So, for example, like the things that you were telling me in your course recently, was it? I can't remember which subject you were doing. I think it was the abnormal subject.
Mm-hmm.
You were telling me a lot about like behavioural problems that kids have, and like you could really pick those signs and see kids having problems. And
yeah, I could. I know that a lot of people don't like having friends who are psychologists because
so annoying.
oh my god, because you don't like the feeling of being analyzed. You feel violated in a way because you feel like your psychologist friend understands how you're feeling, but
and he's judging.
Yeah, but
they are.
They might be, but I don't think every single psychologist out there is trying to psychoanalyze you and try to manipulate you through that. They're probably just doing it because they know their shit and go like, oh, yep, that's a classic sign of OCD.
Yeah.
Or something like that. But, and a classic example of that is after I've studied abnormal psychology at university, I've noticed that the different kids that I have interactions with in my life, you can say that they're toddlers. I can tell that different kids have different sort of issues. For example, some kids have behavioral issues because of not bad parenting, but just not very effective parenting. Some kids have anxiety because their parents are very like helicopter parents. They're telling their kids off too much, and I can see the signs in kids, but it's still really hard for me to see the signs in adults.
Yeah, well, adults are more complicated, I guess. And I mean, sometimes it can be frustrating because you might be able to see the signs, but you don't know where the boundaries are. You don't want to cross the line and offend somebody, and you just sort of wish that they knew some of the stuff that you've learnt, but it's not really your place to always tell them or to interfere in their lives. But I just want to backtrack because, I mean, we've got to assume that, well, hopefully the layperson is listening to this and people that can get some benefit from this sort of thing. They probably don't know what exactly we mean by abnormal psychology, and they definitely, well, I don't know what a helicopter parent is, so could you back up and define some of those things?
So, abnormal psychology, that particular unit that I've studied, is just, it's not all about crazy people. It's about mental illness, and some of them are very common, such as depression and anxiety, and those you will call mental illnesses, which you can cope with in life and still go with your everyday life, have a job, have a family, have friends, and still live life all right. But they're not that severe, but they are affecting people's lives. Whilst we also study issues that are more severe, like full-blown schizophrenia and bipolar and OCD.
Yeah, so I think what you were trying to describe, it reminds me of that continuum they were talking about in class. So I think it was the 3 categories of abnormal. So it was like a continuum from normality to abnormal. Do you remember what they were? I think it was deviance, maladaptive behaviors, and personal distress. So, like, you could have, say, for instance, a cocaine habit, and well, firstly, that comes under deviance because the amount of people in the population that have a cocaine habit are, a smaller amount of the population. But just by having something that you do, a behavior that you do, which is abnormal in the sense that not many people do it, doesn't mean that you've got a problem. It depends on the severity of the other factors like personal distress and maladaptive behaviors. So, like with drug behavior, especially, I think maladaptive behaviors is the one that signifies the most as to whether or not it's a big issue for you. So, if you can't turn up to work, if you're losing your job, or if you can't pay the rent or something because your drug habit's taken over your life, then it's definitely a problem. Or like everyone gets a bit depressed, a bit anxious, but if your level of personal distress is really high because of your anxiety or because of your depression, then you'd say that you've got a problem. Do you know what I mean? Does that sound right?
Definitely. And I think just normal people, the everyday person who has never really had any encounter with anyone who has mental illness and isn't really familiar with mental illnesses. They think that people who see psychologists or psychiatrists or even a counselor, that people who need a little help with their mental issues are just crazy. And there's two categories: crazy people and normal people.
Right.
And that is
the stigma.
Yes, and that is the stigma.
Yeah.
Like everything occurs on a spectrum. Everyone has a bit of anxiety. Everyone feels sad sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And people need to understand that, because that's the key to acceptance and to end stigmatization. It's
Right.
very important for patients and their families.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I always try to be really vocal about the fact that I've had therapy and that I'm seeing a psychologist. I'll try and say it in a way that sounds normal, like, oh, my psychologist said this to me, because I want to try and, do my bit to combat that stigma, because I think it's a problem. And, like, I think some of it's an issue also with the terminology that's used, like abnormal psychology, because you could have an issue that's defined as abnormal, but I don't think it's abnormal to have issues like this. You know what I mean? Like the rates of anxiety, depression, all these things, they're so common. Everyone has these problems, and I think that boundary of not wanting to have that change in your identity to address yourself as someone that's got a problem, like that's getting in the way of so many normal people with normal problems getting the sort of help that could really help them. So I guess in a sense that's part of what this podcast is about. Like, we want to popularize psychology. We want to have people like not feel afraid to speak up about issues that they have, or to go and seek out some help. And
because I've lived with, I don't want to put labels on it at all. And
labels are bad.
Yes. And I don't like talking about it either. But just as an example, a person can live with depression all their life and they don't know it.
Yeah, they don't even know they're depressed, right?
It's possible. They can be depressed from childhood into adulthood and they don't even know, because they simply don't have an understanding of basic psychology. And I think maybe not, at least I think adults should have a basic understanding of psychology and mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not kids. Maybe we shouldn't educate them too young.
I think it should be included in the schooling system. I think in high school I could have benefited from learning some of the basic concepts which I've learned at university. And
maybe in high school.
I've had 2 attempts at doing this course. I started university to begin with as a mature age student. So I was already, I don't know, well into my 20s, but then, I started again when I was about 26 or 27, and I learned some things then that if I had have known when I was younger, like they really could have helped me. I think it could be beneficial to have it incorporated into the schooling system, but either way, what I'd say that I think it should be, I can't say mandatory, it sounds too snobby, but I think it would be really beneficial if parents learnt a little bit about conditioning. Like just even something so basic as understanding punishment and alternatives to punishment. So, I mean, let's not be too vague. Let's give an example here. Like, break down if you can, like the negative effects of punishment as opposed to something like reinforcement of other behaviors.
Okay, so let's define what reinforcement and punishment is. Reinforcement is when a child does their homework, you say, good boy or good job. That's reinforcement. Punishment is when they don't do their homework, you say, no dinner tonight, or you've been a bad boy, which happens. And yes, we can all laugh about it, but as a child, when you get punished, it is very, very traumatizing.
Ooh, okay. Depending on the punishment. It can be a little bit traumatizing. No.
Well, from personal point of view anyway, even it depends on the type of punishment.
Right.
But once you've drilled in to the child that there's a good girl and a bad girl.
As an identity.
That is very bad because they attach the things they do and the things that they don't do and the abilities such as intelligence to their identity, and if they don't achieve the grades that their parents want to, they've been bad.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Giving a shout out to Asian parents here. Oh, just so you know, I'm not racist. I'm also not Asian, but Bella is, so. And I'm with her, so I can make Asian jokes, right?
I guess.
I just lost half of our viewers.
Nah. Anyway, so it's not even with homework and stuff. It's drilled into the child from a very young age, from when they understand what good boy means.
Right.
And that's like 1 year of age.
Mm.
So,
I mean, this is getting into that thing, those studies that were talking about the way you praise your child for their good work, whether you say, oh, good boy, for what they've just done, as opposed to saying something like good work.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that blew my mind as well.
Yeah,
and it would be
too.
good if we could put the references to the actual studies, because if anyone wants to look at it, if there was any piece of advice I could give parents, and I know we sound like dicks because we're not parents, and people will be like, you don't understand, you don't have kids. But a lot of parents don't understand that this can be so damaging. But we'll come back to that. Just in a nutshell, like with punishment, it's like taking medication. It's going to target something. It's going to change the behavior. And that's what we really want to do when we're rewarding or punishing. We want to modify a child or an animal's or whatever's behavior. But punishment comes with side effects. Whereas if you reinforce a competing behavior, it's called reinforcement of other behavior. So there's 2 things that the child could do. One is something you want them to do, one something that you don't, and they're competing. You reinforce whenever they do the good thing. So then it's all positive. There's no side effects to that, and you're managing to control the behavior without any damaging side effects. So, what are some of the side effects of punishment?
Well, it's obvious with physical. Physical punishment, obviously you're hurting the child. The child will remember as they grow up into adulthood, and they won't appreciate it when they realize that it's they've been abused as a child physically. Secondly, vocal abuse, like you've been bad, that's showing the child that your love is conditional. And that is not good for a child growing up, because as a child, your relationship with the parent is the most important relationship, and it's the relationship that you will learn to base your other relationships on, like your friendships and your future partner's relationship, right? So if that attachment is not secure, if your child thinks that the if the parents' love is conditional, because whenever they do something bad, they are being told off, saying that they're a bad boy, they've done bad, then it's not good for the emotional growth of the child. And they learn to have to always please the parent in order for affection.
Right. So just to play devil's advocate here, like, a parent's going to listen to this and say, you don't know what it's like. You have no idea how stressful it is to try and raise a child, and the pressure that they're put under is tremendous, especially in today's day and age. There's so many things that you've got to take care of to raise a child and to keep the family, the house going, and, like, financial stresses, work stresses, etc., etc. And I mean, I think a big issue, like the parent, the most important thing is giving the child that love. And the most loving parents can still be at their wits' end, facing so much stress in their own life. Everyone, when they're close to that threshold, they're going to snap. And children can really push your buttons, They can learn how to push your buttons and intentionally do it to get attention out of you, which is another interesting thing we could talk about. But like, what advice would you... Not that we're in a position to, but hey, let's just bring some of what we know in psychology to, the average person. Someone's really stressed out and they're snapping at their child, but they don't want to, but sometimes they just can't help it. Like, what do you think of that?
I think in that case, it's been in the cycle for too long where the child nags or behaves badly, and in order to push the buttons of the parent to either get the parent's attention because they feel like they don't have enough love and attention because they're being told off, which is ironic, but we'll get back to that. And then the parent, has the buttons pushed and lashes out at the child. And I think at that point, it's not too late to just say, to revise your attitude towards your child and say, hey, I want to improve this relationship and it's not working out. And firstly, learn how to punish your child so that you're not punishing your child.
What does that mean?
Learn how to deal with bad behavior without punishing. So, for example, you ignore their bad behavior, right? This is a very important technique, because if you're giving them that attention for bad behavior, they'll just keep doing it. The kids don't know that if you're not, as a parent, if you're not giving them that attention and that love because you're too tired to give them that attention and love because you just told them off, like, the child would feel neglected, right? And it'll just happen again and again, this cycle. So what you really need to do is to ignore bad behavior and to systematically and gradually reward the good behaviors. And when I say good behaviors, if your child is behaving really badly, you should reinforce the normal behaviors, right? So if the child is just always nagging, always misbehaving, always kicking their sibling or something, when they're not bashing up their sibling and they're just sitting there doing nothing, go give them a hug, right? Reward them for not misbehaving, just for the fact that they're sitting there and not misbehaving. Go give them a hug, go spend some time with them, and really increase that time, that quality time with them, so that they do get that attention, they do get that affection and love and care. And gradually, if you ignore their bad behavior, and and when I mean ignore, not like if they're bashing their sibling, don't just turn a blind eye on it.
Mm.
When I say ignore, don't lash out at them. I know it's very hard, but you have to. And just tell them to go to their room, right?
So it seems like you're saying that the children are craving that intensity of the attention.
Yes.
And they can be programmed to, I guess, sort of enjoy even negative attention, in the sense that you're mad at them, you're telling them off because they're just craving that more intense interaction. So the way to turn it around would be to give them the intensity of your love and your attention towards them when they're doing the sorts of things that that you're wanting them to do, or that are more socially desirable. So
Yes.
I mean, this really gets down to the fundamentals of what instrumental conditioning is, which it's a concept that's so common to us because we've had it drilled into us over and over and over again in psychology. But I think everyone has a sort of basic understanding of, you do something and you get a reward, you're more likely to do it again. You do something, you get punished, you're less likely to do it again. But I mean, until I've seen some of the studies that I've seen, like on animal training and stuff, it really blows my mind just how powerful that can be. Like, obviously humans are more complicated than rats, but like all sorts of animals. Like, go look at a SeaWorld trainer. I don't support SeaWorld. Go watch the documentary Blackfish. But anyway, it's amazing what you can get even a complex and intelligent animal to do just by giving it simple rewards and punishments. And I mean, I would highly recommend everybody just learn a little bit about conditioning.
Definitely.
It's amazing. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to harp on too long with the parenting thing, because I guess it's kind of sort of like a negative subject, saying parents aren't doing a good job. But what was helicopter parenting? I've heard this thing before, but I don't know what it is.
Helicopter parents are just parents who, the imagery is that the parents is so protective that their arms are like helicopter arms, and they're trying to protect their children under their arms all the time, so it's like a helicopter. Does that make sense? So they're
too intense. They don't let their kids be kids.
Yes, they care for them a bit too much. They're overprotective. They control every single aspect of their life.
So they're getting micromanaged.
Yep.
And we can all relate to bosses who micromanage us and how much that pisses you off in the workforce. So I guess it must be frustrating as a kid to have a parent like that.
Well, I mean, it's all they know. They've grown up with the parent, so.
Fair enough. Okay, well, that's interesting. And I mean, I took a few notes here. Like, I don't know if we're allowed to link to studies, like in terms of actually attaching the PDFs or whatever. But if we could at least just in some notes, just back up some of the shit we're saying by putting some studies there. I would like to get some about reinforcement of other behaviour, and also this thing that we're talking about like good work as opposed to good boy and stuff like that. So just quickly to recap and put it in a nutshell, what are we saying?
What are we saying?
What's the difference between, what's the effects of saying good work as a reinforcer as opposed to good boy, good girl?
Okay. Well, good boy means that because you've done this thing, you inherently are a good person.
Mm-hmm.
Good work means that because you've done this thing, you've done a good job, you've put in your effort, and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
No link to your identity whatsoever. You're still a great person. You're still who you are, despite of what you've done.
Right.
And I think, just as a person, you would, if you attach every single thing that happens in your life, in daily life, like, everyone says that stupid comment that they didn't want to say, right? Like, oh, Helen's getting fat these days, isn't she? Like, you say things in life.
Poor Helen.
You say things in life that you didn't really mean, right?
Right.
But
So we make mistakes.
Yes, you make mistakes, you do bad things, but if you've grown up being told you're a good boy, then you would think, oh shit, I've said that about Helen, and at night you'll think it over and over again. You ruminate and think, oh, what a bad person I am. Helen must be so devastated. I've ruined her life, and I'm a inherently bad person.
Right, it's your identity. Because it's really, it all comes down to, okay, like, the reinforcement's going to feel good regardless of which one you said. And it's great to be told you're a good boy, you know. I love that. I still want my mum to say that to me. But the problem is what happens when you fail, or what happens when you put under a serious amount of stress. And, like, the reason why this means so much to me is my psychologist, who I've been seeing because I'm crazy, has sort of pointed this out to me, that I'm like an atypical case of someone who's been given the wrong type of reinforcement. And when I'm doing my studies, right, if I'm doing an assignment and I started early enough and I'm not put under too much pressure, and I'm doing a good job, I feel really good. But the problem is I don't just feel good about the work that I've done. I feel good about myself as a person. My concept of myself and my identity is getting reinforced by the good work that I'm doing, right? But I don't think of it as good work. I think of it as I am a good person. So what happens when I get put under too much pressure and too much stress, some last-minute assignment that I know I can't finish, my whole world falls apart. I have an identity crisis. I start to feel like because I'm failing at this task, that I'm therefore failing as a person. And you see this in kids. Studies have shown that this is what happens. That if you reinforce a child, and think about it, this isn't trivial. This is something that gets said by the parents, by the teachers, over and over and over and over again. And people love reinforcement. They hate punishment. It's what drives us. It's what controls our behavior. So if you're geared to want to get that reinforcement as a good boy over and over again, sorry, I'll backtrack. In children, when they're failing at the task, or when they're put under heaps of pressure, the ones that have been told you're a good boy, you're a good girl, they fall apart. They really do. They can't do the task. Whereas the ones that have been told good work, good work, good work, they've connected their work and their sense of pride in working hard with that reinforcement. So when they're put under pressure, they don't fall apart. They've learnt to value hard work. So the task gets crazy, it gets too intense, they work harder. They push more. They've got so much more in them before they would, fail or say, I can't do it. And if they do get to the point where they say, I can't do it, they don't say, I can't do it because I'm a bad person or I'm a failure. They say, I can't do it because the task was too hard. They've externalized it, and that's so much healthier than internalizing it and having your sense of identity riding on that. Anyway, I know we've gone into this kind of deep, but this is hopefully the sort of thing that I want to get out in this podcast.
Yeah, I think you've put that perfectly, and that's just one of the little things that we do want to discuss in our podcast ICP, because we want to get the word out there,
Yeah, just these little things that can be helpful. It might be just a minor change in the way you talk to yourself.
Yeah.
And also, I think it helps us put it into practice. But just as a disclaimer, in no way are we saying that we're experts. We're talking about this stuff because it's interesting and we want to popularize it and get it out there. But I really do want to get some of our lecturers and some of the teaching staff and research stuff from the university on the podcast. I do want to interview some experts. If they'll come on, that would be amazing. But anything we say, like, go and see a therapist if you've got some issues, is what I'm saying. Don't be like, oh, Chris said I should do this.
Yeah, by no means.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're not experts on anything at all. We're just normal people. But our field of interest is obviously psychology. But we didn't call it the Psychology Podcast. We called it the Intellectual Conversations Podcast. Now, my biggest source of inspiration for this podcast personally is another podcast called the Joe Rogan Experience. I've sat down and analysed what I enjoy most about that podcast, and it's literally this. It's just intellectual conversations. Do you find that some of your friends just talk about dumb shit and it does your head in? Like, sometimes people, they don't have the time or whatever, and in their life they just don't get enough of that intellectual stimulation. TV over the years has just gotten dumber and dumber. Thank God for the internet, which I think is what killed TV anyway. But yeah, we just want to give people access to some interesting conversations, and even for ourselves to explore ideas that we've had, get to talk to interesting people. So my point is, this isn't limited to psychology, but I do hopefully want to get out there something that can maybe give someone a bit of a push to get their life together. The Joe Rogan podcast has done that for me in so many ways. It's inspired me to get fit, to go and do some martial arts, to do this podcast, to do something, and I've really enjoyed it. And yeah, I would like for us to do our own spin of something like that.
Yeah, and Chris really loves the Joe Rogan podcast experience, whatever.
Joe Rogan Experience.
All right. And yeah, he listens to it like pretty much every single day, I would say.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
And it's mostly on MMA, right?
No.
And just
It depends on the guest, but yeah, there is a lot of talk about mixed martial arts in UFC.
yeah, and Chris would like to do a little segment on just MMA UFC sort of talk in this podcast. Not in today's podcast, but just on
Basically,
ICP.
when I'm talking with my mates that are into this sort of stuff, you might hear a lot about martial arts, because I'm in no way a martial artist, but I'm definitely an enthusiast.
Yeah.
And it's fun, and there's a lot of things that I've got to say about it.
And what's your background with MMA?
My background, okay. So my first black belt was in karate. My second, no, I don't have any black belts. I don't have any white belts. I got nothing. Literally, I became a massive UFC fan. What happened was my friend lent me his hard drive, and it was so that I could copy his movies. And I wasn't even remotely interested. I'd seen it on TV, and I thought, what is this violent sport? I've seen blood, and I was like, oh, no, I think it's too much. But anyway, I never gave him the hard drive back, but he had a massive UFC collection, and once I got bored of all these movies, if you ever listen, what was his name? Chewy or something? No, Chua? If you ever listen to her, you're not getting the hard drive back. So yeah, anyway.
You don't even remember his name.
Oh, he was a friend of a friend. He was a cool guy. I hope he does listen. Contact me. I'll give you a new hard drive. So anyway, I just started watching it, and eventually I got kind of hooked. I found it entertaining. And Joe Rogan's the commentator for the UFC, and he's also doing his own podcast. And he gets really interesting guests on it. Like, he's a comedian as well, a stand-up comedian. So a lot of them were stand-up comics, and some of them are cool to listen to, and they have some fascinating conversations. But I generally gravitate towards the ones that are, intellectual people. He's had Neil deGrasse Tyson on there. Sam Harris has been on there a number of times. I felt like I didn't need to say who Neil deGrasse Tyson was. I think if you don't know who he is, you shouldn't be listening to our show. But Sam Harris is a very controversial author who goes into like religious issues, and he's a neuroscientist. I've found his book on meditation fascinating, and that was the thing I found most interesting about him. But just exposure to really smart people and what they have to say about issues going on in the world, like climate change, politics, technology, futurism. I just find all this sort of stuff fascinating.
Yeah.
If we can explore it more and have guests on,
Yeah, even without guests, we can talk about those topics just all on our own. I mean, we're somewhat educated in the field of psychology, but we read topics on like general science and MMA for you, and futurology and philosophy and sociology and stuff like that. Like, these are just some of the few topics that we will discuss on ICP.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And as I said, hopefully I'll be able to get some cool guests. It'll firstly just be some friends. who I find that I have really interesting conversations with, and hopefully other people will enjoy them too. But what I'd like to do is get some kind of forum or something like on Reddit where if people have some questions that they would like to ask about, say, some generally probably about psychology related issues, we'd be happy to do some research on things and talk about it and try and answer those questions. Like that could be fun.
Yeah.
What else?
So I guess we've talked a lot about our podcast, but we haven't really talked about ourselves as a person.
Well,
Do you
I'm
wanna-
amazing.
Yeah, do you want to start about how amazing you are?
So I'll talk about how amazing Bella is instead, so I don't sound too cocky. I wasn't that cute and sweet. Firstly, we both got a cold. We're not normally so nasally. Can you hear it? It's really nasally. All right, so I suddenly got shy.
Who are you?
Who am I? I'm just a guy. All right, look, this is my life story in a nutshell. I've been trying to be a psychologist for years, right? I dropped out of high school. I've never been good at studying. I've been going around in circles. I've been trying to label myself forever. I don't know whether I got ADD, anxiety, drug problems, self-control issues, or a whole bunch of things. But either way, I found studying fascinating, but I wasn't very good at getting myself to stick to deadlines and stuff. But I really like to help people, like when
You do.
when one of my friends or family has a problem, like I find that the most rewarding thing for me in life is being there for somebody when they need it. And I find one of the most frustrating things in life is people being plagued by mental issues, because we're living in the first world. I mean, I know Australia's got some issues, but in general, I feel like we don't know how to appreciate how good we've got it. And I mean, I would love to go help some people in third world countries with bigger problems, but I don't know how I could. But the reason why I wanted to be a therapist is because I figured, at least for people who do have a reasonably good life, if they could learn how to enjoy it and maybe give more back, like that really inspires me. So that's why I wanted to be a psychologist. But honestly, the amount of stress I was going through trying to do the course, I felt like all I was doing was causing more mental issues in myself rather than helping anyone's. So I've decided I want to do counselling instead, because it's easier to get the course. And I know that sounds like a cop out, but fuck it. I want to actually do it. I want to get into a position where I can sit down and help people with some problems. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm starting the counselling course in January, and I want to do this podcast.
Yeah, and I fully support you on. I fully support you on your choice to, work towards counselling and become a counsellor, because you have this compassion in you for others, and I see it every day, just in the way you treat people, and I think that's the main reason why we're together today as a couple, because
Stop. This is too much for listeners.
no, I'm just being real here. Just because I was at a very psychologically unstable stage in my life when I met you, and you have shown me nothing but love and compassion, and without you, I don't think I will be here today. And I just want to say that, even if you don't make it as a counselor or as a psychologist, you've really helped my life, and I know that. Thank you. Anyway, and I know for a fact that you've helped a lot of other family members and friends as well, and I think you'll be great at your job.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you'd like to add as to who you are?
I really want to promote meditation. It's something that I haven't done enough of, but I really think it's the most powerful tool for anyone to help themselves. So yeah, if I can be an advocate of that and some other things as well, just of mental health in general. I just want to promote ways that people can be less stressed and more able to enjoy their lives. That's what I'm about. But enough about me because I'm too much about myself. What about you?
Well, I am pretty much your typical Asian. I have just being real. I have grown up in your typical Asian family, and for those who don't know what a typical Asian family is like, I have I have put my studies, my academic studies, in a very high position in my life, and attach my identity with how well I do at uni for most of my life. Not just uni, sorry, just in academically, right?
Right.
And other than that, I have played piano pretty much all my life as well. And I have been a piano teacher. And
If you need some lessons, just email us. We charge a lot.
we don't charge a lot. And yeah, I think I identify myself the strongest as Chris's partner right now.
Fiance.
Okay, fiance, whatever.
Check out that diamond ring.
We're gonna get robbed. Anyway, yeah, I'm also a university student who's in my last year of studies. And no, I'm not working towards becoming a clinical psychologist, but yes, I do want to help people. I only don't want to be a clinical psychologist because I don't think I am, how should I put it, psychologically stable enough or healthy enough to help others with psychological issues, and for myself to be okay with that and come home after a whole day of talking to people who have psychological issues and be okay.
You don't want to feel like a hypocrite?
No. Not just being a hypocrite. I'm with my job, but I just don't want to go home and not be able to sleep because I know there's so many people out there with issues, and that, yes, I'm trying to help them, but obviously there's still so many people with issues, and I don't think I can sleep on that. And
I think what you're trying to say is I don't know if, firstly, I don't know if anyone's ever going to listen to this, but if you have listened, then you've gotten this far. That's great. But I'm a bit older than Bella, about 10 years older. But I feel like Bella's still in a process of sort of finding herself and trying to discover what it is that she brings to the table and what she wants to do in life. And she's the typical sort of student that went to university straight from high school with signing up for a course that they thought sounded cool or whatever, probably just because their parents said you must go to university. And a lot
that's not how it happened.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is,
I haven't found myself.
I spent a lot of years in the workforce hating it, and I really I knew what I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
I think that's probably more the key. Like, it wasn't so much that I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to have a meaningless 9-to-5 job where I'm working, sitting at a desk behind, in front of a computer and getting fat and lazy and stressed and hating life. I wanted to do something meaningful, and I thought being a psychologist and now being a counselor would be the best thing for me to feel good about what I'm doing. Whereas, I think a lot of people start university not quite sure. They're just continuing their education. And I think you sort of fit into that category, that you just signed up for a course.
Yeah, I totally agree with you when you say that I haven't found myself as a person and what I want to do in life. But I can relate when you say that you don't want to sit in an office job from 9 to 5 because I hate that.
Yeah, 100%.
I hate businesses. I hate businesses and companies which run for profit in, you know, just I like to live by very strong morals, right? I don't want to affect other people's lives negatively in any way, even if it's just buying the wrong shampoo because you've been watching an advertisement that's false, right? I don't want to do anything in life.
So which shampoo would you represent and recommend, and what sponsors could we get out of this?
Not Pantene because they use animal testing.
Yeah, or palm olive because palm oil plantations. I don't know what I'm
You're
talking
just
about.
making bullshit up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is I like helping people because I find that very rewarding. I want to be able to go to do my job, whatever it is. I haven't found what it is yet, but I want to wake up, go do my job, go home, and be satisfied with my life and what I do, and be able to sleep knowing that I am working within my values and my morals.
Right. And I think that's something that we've agreed on from day one, and I think that's something that sort of attracts us to each other, that we both have that same sort of set of morals that, basically everything you just described. I feel bad for what I said, saying that you hadn't found yourself when you're young. The only reason why I said that was because when you said that you identify mostly with being my partner, I'm like, that's really sweet and everything, and obviously it's a big part of my identity too, but like, I just think that in a couple of years down the track, if someone asks you who you are and what you're about, like, obviously our personal life means so much to you, and I'm sure you would say, wife and maybe mother, whatever. But I think you would also...
Stop trying to get babies out of me.
But I'm sure you would also say something about, what you're doing in terms of your career and, what your ambitions are and stuff like that.
Hopefully, yeah. I wouldn't like that because I do feel kind of lost right now without a full-time job and working towards something that I believe in. And hopefully this podcast would be an outlet for me to do something that I do believe in because I want to believe that this podcast would be listened by quite a few people and
95% Australians.
and that this would help their lives in one form or another, and I'll be very happy if that does happen.
Or at least entertain people who are on a long drive to work.
Yeah, at least let me be entertainment.
Yeah. All right, well, look, I don't want us to ramble on too much. I think we've pretty much covered, like, if you haven't noticed, this is intended to be an introductory podcast, just to say who we are, what we're about, and what we're hoping to get out of this and what we're hoping to give to others through this. And hopefully I've got a few friends that I've been trying to sell on this podcast. So hopefully we'll have a guest next time. But if not, me and Bella can just once a week. Yeah, well, I should say that we're intending to do this once a week, unless it's a guest who wants to come on the weekend. Most likely every Thursday, me and Bella will sit down for about an hour or so for however long we feel entertained and just bang it out. And yeah, hopefully you get something out of it.
Yeah. Also, I am doing a YouTube channel called Live Life.
Oh, yeah.
It is just a channel where you see Chris and I living life because we believe that, we should live life at its fullest every single day and appreciate how good we've got it in this first world country.
Right. So, like, we've actually both decided to not make earning as much money as we can a goal, because I feel like so many people are robbed of, well, firstly, hours in their day and their week, like the working week and working hours is crazy. You spend most of your life either driving to work, sitting behind your desk, going home, preparing your lunch for work. Like, it's all work. Where's the time to live? So, like, I'm only working 4 hours a day, and we live in a tiny little, one day we'll have some cameras on this show, we live in a tiny little studio apartment, and we're happy. We're content with this. Like,
Yes.
rent's cheap, and we would rather get out there and enjoy our lives rather than try and amass more material wealth for what? You know, like, you can't take it with you. So we're trying to use this Live Life channel and also this podcast as a means for us to, as a reason to get out there and do something. Like, I know it's kind of corny, but I think Anthony Robbins said, a life worth living is a life worth recording. And he was talking about keeping a journal. Fuck that. I hate journals. Let's make some videos on YouTube. You know?
Wait, you mean journals as in written journals, right?
Yeah, as in a diary.
You just hate it because you can't write.
No, I could never get into the habit of it. But
yeah,
so, like, if we're sitting around on the weekend bored with nothing to do and we're just entertaining ourselves with mindless, you know, cartoons and movies and stuff, like, we'd rather get out there and get more active and do some fun things and try and spread these sort of ideals about, you know, living healthy and what else. Like,
so in the Live Life channel, you will see us doing little burger hunts and just going out and doing nature walks along the beach and
watching Bella cooking because she's a great cook.
Oh, stuff it.
But, like, we want to research. Bella's already pretty smart in terms of eating healthy, but we want to research, like, the healthiest way to eat, for instance, because that's so beneficial for your life. So we want to promote these sort of values and ideals on the show. And, like, I don't know if you can tell because I obviously talk a lot. And, like, to be honest, this podcast, it's easy for me to talk. But I've got a lot of social anxiety. Once I'm out in public, I can't say shit. I can't handle the camera. I can't handle people knowing that we're doing videos and stuff. And a key concept in psychology is exposure or exposure therapy. And it's basically facing your fears. And it helps you grow as a person and get stronger. So for me, a lot of it is, as I've already said, to get out there and live life a bit more, do some fun, healthy, rewarding things, and promote that as a lifestyle. But B, to just overcome some of my anxiety, and I think that would be really healthy for me. That's me. What about you?
Well, for me, I think I also want to have a little self-help theme to the Live Life channel as well, because I want to show people out there in Sydney and maybe overseas people who want to visit Sydney as well, that there's so many things out there for you to do. Chris and I live on a budget, right? We're going to find the cheapest things to do that are fun, the freest thing to do that are fun. And it's better than sitting in front of a TV screen or a computer screen on the weekend when you can go out there and just enjoy yourself, even if you're just doing it alone. Because going out there and getting some fresh air and getting some sun is really important for your mental health and your physical health. Also, I want to hopefully one day collaborate with organizations, not-for-profit organizations in the society that really help, just Sydney people to have better mental health.
Right.
Like those runs and stuff.
Hey,
City to Serve.
There's a run coming up soon, actually.
Yeah.
And just so you know, I'm not very fit. I'm promoting this as a concept at the moment. Oh no, I'd say I'm fitter than the average person, but my endurance for running is terrible. So don't expect to see, like...
Well, we don't have to run. All I'm trying to say is I want to get the word out there. I want to show people that there's support out there for people with mental illness and for normal people as well who wants to get active and get out there and have some fun.
Right.
And I guess that's what I want out of the Live Life videos.
And, you know, I really like what you said about not-for-profit, and I'm all about not-for-profit. That being said, if you want to sponsor the Live Life channel or these podcasts, contact me. I do like money.
Yeah, I mean, any donations would be greatly appreciated because but both of us are just living off Chris's part-time job, and I'm living off, and also Centrelink is paying me as well. But
Thanks for the support, government.
but yeah.
Hey, but we're doing all right. I'm only joking about sponsors and shit. If we do ever get some sponsors, okay. First of all, I don't think we're ever going to make any money off this podcast or our YouTube channel. It's for us. It's an outlet. It's for us to grow as people
just for
and
us.
hopefully help some other people. But if I did ever, manage to sponsor, to promote anything and get some sponsors, I would want it to be ethical, and I would want it to be something that I truly believe in. And because I think, I'm going to talk for days on this podcast about my ideas around capitalism and about what's the word? The opposite of capitalism.
Socialist views.
Yeah, socialist views. I don't sound very intelligent right now. But I mean, I think within the capitalist system, there's a lot of corruption, and we've just been watching this documentary, The Corporation, which I'm sure we're going to get into. It basically shows that it's all about it's all about the bottom line in such a way that corporations don't care about people. They don't care about people's feelings, about their welfare. They don't care about the environment. They don't care about anything but profit. And I'm totally against that. That being said, within this system, there are people and companies and whatnot trying to do something good and trying to do something positive, or even if all they're doing is trying to make money, they might have products which are beneficial and which maybe deserve some credit. And hopefully if we ever do get sponsors, it'll be, something that I can sleep at night knowing that we're promoting.
Yeah, you wouldn't see us promoting McDonald's or Nike.
Damn it, I was going to contact McDonald's. Yeah, true. All right, I think we should wrap this up.
Right.
It's been about an hour. Any concluding remarks?
Not really. Just if you've listened to all this, thanks for listening for the hour.
Thank you. Well done.
Yeah, really well done.
All right, check us out on YouTube. Get out there and live life. Whoop. Oh, can I edit that out? All right, just end it.
All right.
Okay, that was the end of the podcast, but I wanted to reference some of the things that we've discussed, just in case anyone wants to look into them further. So when we're going on about the good boy versus good work, the article that we covered at uni, the study that went into that, it's called Person versus Process Praise and Criticism, Implications for Contingent Self-Worth and Coping. It's a really good read. I haven't actually read it since uni, but I just skimmed through it. It was in the Journal of Developmental Psychology in 1999. I just Googled person praise, process praise, and it came up. We get databases at uni with logins and stuff, so some articles are available for free, some aren't. This one came up in the Google search under psychology.stanford.edu. So if you want to find it, you should be able to find it there. And so I was also talking about reinforcement of other behaviors and the effects or the negative effects of punishment. So I just did a bit of Googling. There's a lot of resources out there looking at the debate between punishment and reinforcement. And if you're interested, just do a quick Google and you'll find some interesting resources. But when I was talking about reinforcement of other behaviors, DRA is actually the specific thing I was talking about, which stands for differential reinforcement of alternative behaviors. But there's a whole range of different types of differential reinforcement, meaning that you're reinforcing some other behavior other than the one that's occurring, which you don't want to occur. So yeah, if you just look up differential reinforcement, if you're interested, you should find some good resources. Thanks for listening to the podcast.